I mean, look, it has been a little while since people have been that excited about a new Snoop Dogg album, but the record that just came out on Friday is a bigger deal because it brings Snoop back together with Dr. Dre. That's a legendary partnership. Today, can Dre and Snoop still push hip-hop forward? I'm Elamin Abdul Mahmoud, and this is Commotion. Okay, listen, Snoop Dogg's brand new album is called Missionary. Let me just play you a little bit.
Money, money, money. Duffel bag on the float, blow it fast, let it go. Raise a glass for the coast, we the last of the goats. Funny when they broke, say they love me when they don't. With the C's and the B's, I get money when I'm both. Floor seats with the bleachers, back to breathing that ether.
That's a song called Skyscrapers. That is Snoop featuring Method Man and Smitty. Missionary is kind of a sequel, you would say, to Snoop's classic 1993 debut, which is Doggystyle. And the thing that made Doggystyle such a big deal is that it was produced by one of the greatest hip-hop producers of all time, Dr. Dre. Well, guess what? Dr. Dre is back producing Snoop's new album more than 30 years later. A.Harmony's here. Mastermind is here. They have both heard it. They're here to talk about it. What's good, y'all? Welcome to the show.
Hey, good morning.
Hello. Listen, Harmony, I'll start with you. How are you feeling about Missionary, this new Snoop record?
Yeah, it's good. It's fun. Is it my favorite album from Snoop and Dr. Dre? No, but together they're still sharp. And I only say that because I've had so much time to sit with their previous work, and you know there are the bona fide classics on there. I'm still getting comfortable with this album, but I can say Snoop and Dr. Dre are still both really sharp. They really have that great chemistry together that's never left. They're having fun together. Nothing feels forced or gimmicky. So overall, there's more to like than not to like.
I was gonna say, for reference, you've had 30 years to sit with Doggystyle. You've had 3 days to sit with Missionary. So, you know,
exactly.
It's not, you know, it hasn't quite built in the body in the same way. Mastermind, let me ask you, just from let's talk about the beats and let's talk about the rhymes and the vibes. Sort of, how are you feeling with this record here?
You know, I had very low expectations when I knew this album was coming out, and I was very pleasantly surprised. Very pleasantly surprised. You know, there's two production teams that, you know, really work well with Snoop. Dre is obviously one of them, and then the Neptunes are the other. Yeah. And in between, you know, Snoop's had some hits and some misses, a few duds, and that's why I was kind of like, you know, what's he going to do from a 2024 perspective? You know, is he going to try to cater to the young kids, or is he going to stay in his lane? And the fact that they stayed in their lane and kind of elevated it with a Dre and Snoop vibe and sound together. Again, I was very pleasantly surprised.
Can I just say, you had every reason to be skeptical because Snoop to me is an artist who never really goes away, but has not had a lot to say in the last little while. I mean, Snoop has dropped an album every 2 years for the last 10 years or so. And I have not, I don't think I can name any of the other albums. And then suddenly they come back together and it's worth sort of having a conversation. I think that's good. I think that's actually a good thing. I want to play a couple cuts off this album. Harmony, you had a favorite you wanted to hear. What's that song called?
Yeah, I love Gorgeous with Jhené Aiko.
Let's do it. Let's hear Gorgeous.
I feel so gorgeous. Don't this look gorgeous? We do the wildest things till 6 in the morning. This that feeling.
Last time I checked, I was the plug to your plug. I'm the connect. What you expect?
Snoop and Jhené as a combination. Talk to me about why this is your choice.
Well, first of all, you gotta love that West Coast piano. As soon as I hear it, I'm transported directly to California. It's exactly what you want from Snoop. And then Jhené adds this really smooth, romantic, kind of lush feel to the song, which I like in juxtaposition to Snoop's braggadocious verses. They have this hard and soft thing going that I really love, and you can dance to it. You can't hit a record that you can dance to. So
yeah, that's exactly where Jhené's voice sort of takes me on top of all of that.
Yeah.
Mastermind, what's the song choice for you, pal?
There's a bunch of them, but let's go with Out of the Blue.
Okay, let's hear a little bit of Out of the Blue.
Bottles of believe we back in business. It's highly recommended. This for all of my pushing the limit. Mile got me over here, the flight attendant.
Yeah, I've been around the world and and seen a thing that I can't buy. See, reaching these type of heights that come with a third eye. I'm better at betting on me. The numbers don't lie.
Snoop and a Lust, that song is called Out of the Blue. This song stuck out for me as well, Mastermind, because it sounds incredibly contemporary in a way that I wasn't sure Snoop could do. Why is this a song for you?
I mean, the song itself, the sample is originally by an artist named Schoolie D from like the '80s, and then the Roots kind of did it again. They sampled it in one of their albums, and then there's this nostalgic feel, and obviously Dre has modernized it as you were mentioning, and it definitely has a contemporary feel. And it just bangs, like you can't help but nod your head to it when it comes on. It's the neck snapping.
Yeah, it's actually like really sad that this is an album that came out in December, because like I heard that song and I was like, oh, this is a driving in the summer song. Like this is like not.
For sure.
This song has nothing
sure.
to do with snow and cold wind whipping in my face. Like I don't want any of that. I gotta say, like I just want to acknowledge a little bit of the legacy of this partnership here, because like when Snoop and Dre get together, like these are people who have given us some of the biggest rap songs in history. I hope you guys don't mind if we just take a little quick tour.
1, 2, 3 into the 4. Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre is at the door, ready to make an entrance, so back on up.
Before I have to pull the strap up and cut.
With so much drama in the LBC, it's kinda hard being Snoop D-O-double-G. But I, somehow, some way, keep coming up with funky ass hits like every single day.
Da-da-da-da-da. It's the one and only D-O-double-G.
Snoop Dogg. Da-da-da-da-da.
Listen, every single one of those songs is an all-timer. You don't get a lot of all-timers as an artist in general. They've had multiple. Harmony, what do you think it is about this combination of Snoop and Dre and the chemistry that just seems to like never really miss?
Yeah, first of all, anytime I hear the two of them together, my mind goes right back to that like montage that you just played.
Yeah.
So that's why it's really hard for me to like say that this new album is a classic right out the gate, knowing that where they're coming from. But when you listen to interviews between Snoop and Dr. Dre, when they talk about when they first met, there was this instant respect between the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that never really went away. Like you hear that in all of the music that they make. They respect each other's talents. They see the potential in each other, and were kind of there from the beginning to like hone each other's careers.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as their friendship deepens, as they continue to collaborate, as they experience so many triumphs in their careers, both separately and together, that chemistry can only grow. They also both take the same approach to their music, so they don't like making anything that feels forced or inauthentic. Dr. Dre will make us wait forever for Detox before he puts out an album that he's not happy with.
He made us wait 18 years for Detox, yes.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think they both take that same approach. Let's do something when it feels natural, when it feels good, and if the chemistry isn't there, let's not do it. So you hear that natural, easygoing pairing between them.
Mastermind, can I talk to you a little bit about hip-hop and aging? Because I'm really interested in this conversation. Hip-hop is such a young genre. We celebrated Hip-Hop 50 not that long ago, right? And so we kind of have to sit with this idea of like moving into our elders' generation, if you will. This is the first time that we're kind of getting hip-hop elders, if you will. Dr. Dre, 59 years old. Snoop is 53. Hip-hop was born kind of as an insurgent medium, as an insurgent kind of genre that is like about capturing the energy of young people. And now we're sort of moving into this new stage. And I just don't know what the possibilities of hip-hop can be. So if you can just maybe like root us in this album and what Snoop is sort of trying to work through, how do you see us sort of, contemplating this idea of hip-hop elders, if you will?
I actually like it because I think hip-hop, R&B are the genres that for some reason, when artists age out, we kind of kick them to the side and we're like, hey, this is a young person's game or sport.
Yeah.
And it's the weirdest thing because you don't get that same kind of attitude when it comes to like rock or when it comes to country.
You get the opposite,
like
actually. Yeah.
You get the absolute opposite.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make any sense. So again, when you reference Hip Hop 50 and you think about the big concerts that happened to celebrate, it was a celebration of the four founders and the people who laid the pavement down, if you will. And Dre and Snoop have been doing this for 30 plus years. If you factor in, what Dre was doing, with World Class Wrecking Crew and NWA and whatnot. So elder, and when you said 59, I kind of didn't even clue it. I'm like 59, holy moly. But the fact that they are making age appropriate music is amazing for people like us who have grown up and we're kind of like, because listen, some of this young music is not for me. They're not making it for me.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be the one to be able to like it or appreciate it. So when artists that I grew up with, that I admire and adore, start making music that is in the pocket of where I am and what I want to hear, and it does give me nostalgic vibes as well as some modern kind of notes and tones to it, I can't help but, be appreciative and very joyful about it.
Mastermind is like, I ain't trying to hear no Denzel Curry. That is not for me. Leave me out of it. And I love that. I respect that, and I love it. But
Poor Denzel.
Poor Denzel. But Harmony, I'm interested in this question particularly because of the contrast that we had this year, because we got Andre 3000 back, right? After such a long time of Andre 3000 from Outkast not really putting out anything, he comes out with a flute album, and it's a beautiful record, and he's curiously exploring all of the different flutes that he owns. But one of the things that he said on the press tour is like, he's like, look, I'm in my late 40s. I'm not really sure I have anything to say in the hip hop mode. And I think that immediately sort of invites the question of like, what do rappers have to tell us as they get into their late 40s and they get into their 50s? And then Snoop comes out with this record. Do you think this is maybe a viable path?
I think so. I think the beauty of where we are right now in hip hop is we're learning how to age and how to age gracefully. Like, none of the rappers that are doing it right now have aged before. So they get to set the tone, set the path, and define what aging looks like. And I think the common thread in all of the hip hop artists that I see that are still doing it is reinvention. Andre 3000 decided, you know what, I'm going to make a flute album. I've kind of done what I can in the hip hop space, and I respect it. Snoop himself has made like an R&B album. He's made a gospel album. He's made a reggae album, children's music. Like, there are people veering into education or show running, etc. So I think they're teaching us how to age gracefully, that aging doesn't put a limit on your creativity. And I'm refreshed to see like the directions that they're heading in. I think it's a blessing to see them grow and age in this space.
It's a really fortunate thing to have an art form sort of mature in this way, that you actually like get elders in that genre.
Exactly.
I know what a Bruce Springsteen album sounds like in his 70s. I'm excited to find out what a Snoop Dogg album sounds like in his 70s. I think like that is a gift in and of itself. Mastermind, I want to maybe close out here. When you compare, the Chronic from Dre and then also Doggystyle to what you're hearing on Missionary, how do you think this album holds up against those already deeply established classics?
Yeah, well, I mean, as you mentioned earlier on, we're only 3 days into this, so I mean, it's hard to rate where it's going to be.
Yes,
but again, being pleasantly surprised and happy with what you're hearing. In my case, with this particular album, is it going to have the impact that Chronic or Doggystyle or even Chronic 2001 had? It's hard to say, but the thing is they aimed and got pretty close to the bullseye, and there's some really, really good music on this album. So is it a classic? Can't say yet. You're never going to say, but it holds up. I really do think, for a 2024 Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg album, it really hits high marks.
I mean, I gotta say, Harmony, between this and the year that Kendrick is having, California, totally banner year on all of us. Maybe a bit much. Maybe dial it back a little bit, stunting on all of us like this.
I'd say wait until the tour before we dial it back. Wait until Kendrick's tour before we dial it back from LA. I'm enjoying this.
That's true. That is true, and we will allow them to have their victory lap. In the meantime, I appreciate both of you being here. Thank you for your time. This has been a delight. Thanks again.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. A.Harmony is a music critic and industry insider based in Toronto. Mastermind is a program director at Toronto's Vibe 105 FM and the host of Mixtape North on channel 164 on Sirius XM. That new Snoop album is called Missionary, and it is out now. I'm Elamin Abdul-Mahmoud, and this is Commotion. Okay, look, the movie The Brutalist comes out in a few days, and it feels like everyone who sees it has, like, the same reaction. Because, like, the minute it ends, people are like, this is it. This is the one that's going to win Best Picture at the Oscars. This is a movie that is 3.5 hours long. It is often screened with a 15-minute intermission. Not your usual Best Picture kind of pick. The Brutalist has received a lot of praise, but also we got to ask, is the hype justified? Radheyan Simonpillai is here. He's got a lot of thoughts. Rad, welcome back to the show, friend.
Thanks for having me, dude.
It's as much as you can distill a 3.5 hour movie. What is The Brutalist about?
Well, it's an immigrant story. Okay, it's about a guy named Laszlo Toth, who is this Hungarian architect who escapes the Holocaust, arrives in America, tries to build himself a new life, and in this circumstance, building himself a new life involves building these monumental brutalist structures. He's kind of commissioned by a wealthy benefactor played by Guy Pearce, and so much of the movie is about like how it's about the violence of immigration. It's about like how like kind of the traumas of the past, the traumas of the Holocaust are expressing himself in this life, this monumental life that he's living.
Yeah.
And it's about basically kind of the cycles of violence, the cycles of traumas, and how they never really end. And I think that especially comes through in a very provocative, almost sinister final act where you almost get a sense that you're never escaping this stuff.
Okay, so I want to get into the conversation about The Brutalist in just a second, but let me just maybe keep it with you personally. You watching this movie, coming out of a 3.5-hour screening, Adrian Brody's The Brutalist. We're going to talk about that in a second. What did you think of the movie?
I mean, I admire it, okay? Not like those people that walked out and be like, it's the greatest thing ever. Like, I'm like, okay, y'all, let's reel it back. Okay, let's reel it back.
You tend to be the, let's dial it back a little bit guy in the room, which is great.
Exactly.
We need that.
Yeah. But basically, like, no, look, this is like you said, a 3.5-hour movie. I watched it twice. I'm going to see it a third time tonight in 70 millimeter.
Oh, wow.
That's saying a lot. There's a lot there.
That's actually saying a lot, yeah.
Yeah, like there's a lot for me to grapple with. There's a lot for me that I think I want to come back. I think I initially kind of wrote it off as a sort of self-aggrandizing filmmaker doing something monumental to kind of announce his presence and stuff, and as this kind of ambitious passion project. But then, when I go back to it, like I think that there is enough there that kind of it frustrated me. I initially wrote it off that way, but then it just keeps growing in my mind, and so I need to keep going back there and then figuring out what it is, like to put a final nail on it, so to speak.
Well, I gotta say though, like I wish people treated movies a little bit like that more often, because like if you hear a song once and you go like, I'm not sure I like this song, you can hear a second time and go like, I hear something different, I'm having a different reaction to it. With movies, most people, I would say most audiences tend to sort of give it like a one go and then leave, right? And like the best movies do grow on you. They actually like end up activating different questions in you, way later. And I guess like that's why what I wanted to get into with this movie, because the reaction to it has been really interesting. It's been the kind of growing reaction where you keep seeing people being like, oh, I thought we forgot how to make movies like this. I thought we forgot how to make sort of like movies that are sweeping and classic and actually are trying to say something really big about the way we live. So it's been compared to The Master, it's been compared to The Godfather, just like the movies that are immediately considered classics. What do you think it is about this movie that makes people go, oh, this is a classic?
I mean, like, certainly that whole 3.5-hour epicness of it, especially with an intermission. I mean, it is very specifically channeling these classics, and it wants people to say that. It wants people to compare it to the epics of old that they loved, and like The Godfather. Yeah. Especially with The Godfather, I think the comparison is mainly it's because of the scope of it, but also a foundational immigration story of America, right? That's one big thing. When they compare it to The Master, that's the one that pissed me right off. Like, that's when I was like, that's when this movie almost made an enemy of me, right? Because to put it to context, like The Master is my favorite movie of the 21st century.
Paul Thomas Anderson.
Thomas Anderson's movie ostensibly about Scientology, but both that movie and this movie are about people dealing with their post-war traumas in America, and there's a foundational aspect of it. And The Master, my favorite movie of the 21st century, the way these people, the first reactions out of Venice with this movie, people were like you said, they were instant classic, declaring it a masterpiece. It's like The Master. Yeah. Y'all don't remember when The Master premiered, you didn't call it a masterpiece.
No. It was received quite tepidly, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it was a movie that grew on to people. And in even some cases, I don't think a lot of people appreciate it as the masterpiece that it is. Yeah. So, that was what bothered me. But then at the same time, I understand the comparison, because then when I watch this movie, I'm like, oh, like, he does borrow a lot from The Master. Like, there's literally the post-war traumas, figuring that out in 50s America, like that's one thing. The benefactor relationship that the Adrian Brody, Laszlo Toth character has with the Guy Pearce character, where there's something snaky going on. Yeah. Even like the artistry, like some of the kind of hidden jokes from The Master are here. Like there's in The Master, and then in this movie, there's this hidden running theme where he can't get it up, he can't perform and have sex. Yeah. And in The Master, it's this really amusing in joke that also there's a lot of emotion tied to it. Yeah. Here, it's more self-aggrandizing and oppressively self-serious in this movie, right?
Yeah.
So, but again, so like I see the comparisons, but really what I'm seeing is like this movie is to The Master what Paul Thomas Anderson's Magnolia was to Nashville, right? So it's a film, you know what I mean? Like it's
okay,
but it's like
we're dealing with the same themes, but maybe with a bit less sort of craft. Is what you're saying.
You're dealing with a filmmaker who wants to vault himself into that. Like I want him. He wants to make a movie.
He wants to be in
like
that conversation.
He wants to be the new Paul Thomas Anderson, and I admire the hell out of that. I mean, if you are a filmmaker in this day and age, considering all the crap that comes out, and you are aspiring to that,
that's pretty good.
I appreciate that.
That's a good that's a good North Star to set, right? Like the idea of like saying, like, I want to make a movie that resonates with people and it feels as complicated as a movie like The Master.
I'll add to that, like, look, if you think about it, Magnolia, like a lot of people think Magnolia is like Paul Thomas Anderson's best movie. It's not. He was a young, bratty kid trying to be like his master, just like in this situation. And then afterwards, he discovered his voice and became the great American filmmaker of today, which is like, when with The Master, Phantom Thread, Inherent Vice. So if that's what is in store for Brady Corbet, and again, that's a big if, I'm here for it.
What number of movies is this for Brady Corbet?
3.
Okay,
I mean, like third feature. Yeah.
Okay, so we're still relatively early on in the career, but also have to say, like, my favorite movie of the 21st century, also a Paul Thomas Anderson movie, but not The Master. It's Phantom Thread, which is to say that like there is something progressive, right, about the idea of like your voice builds and builds and builds, and eventually you say, "Oh, this is the thing that I want to say." And and I guess like to just zoom back and return to The Brutalist, like the idea that we get a movie like this, that a movie like this exists in contention right now. There's a nostalgia around it. There's like a really nice kind of nostalgia around having a movie like this. What do you think it is that makes people watch this movie and come out and go like, "Oh, this reminds me of when we made good movies," I guess. Like how are you reading that nostalgia?
I mean, well, part of it is, and this is a lot of the reason why you have people kind of falling all over themselves to declare it a masterpiece and stuff, especially, I mean, among the critics and critics establishment and why critics make this their darling. Yeah. It's like, look, he made a 3.5-hour movie with a 15-minute intermission. So of the scope you don't see anymore, of the scope that they used to make in the 50s, 60s. And he shot it on VistaVision.
Yeah. Okay? What does that mean? Because I think people may not necessarily know what that means. You got to explain that a little bit. Quickly,
so VistaVision is a 50s film format that it was invented by Paramount developed it. It's like the way you load a VistaVision cartridge into a camera is sideways. It basically gave you a much bigger canvas of scope and gave you richer, grainier details. And so VistaVision is what they used for John Ford's The Searchers and Alfred Hitchcock's North by Northwest. And it's just beautiful imagery. Our audience is going to notice that it's shot in VistaVision.
They might.
That's another. They might.
They might notice that it looks different than the other movies I've been seeing on screen in the last little while, though.
Well, I'll tell you, like, this is a movie that's going to be projected on 70 millimeter in a lot of theaters, as it's going to be projected in Toronto at the TIFF Bell Lightbox. And like, I mean, I'm going to notice it. Especially when you compare it to like the hideous projection you get in digital. But the thing is, I just don't feel like anyone who didn't notice the bad color grading in Wicked is going to notice like the richness of color that VistaVision gives. Even my wife, when I take her to a 70 millimeter film, the only thing she notices is that there's a projector whirring in the background. Yeah, it's like the sound of that projector. But again, like that, but it is that thing that critics love. That's what's part of the nostalgia. You're giving the look of it, the feel of it, the fact that he is fighting like Christopher Nolan and Paul Thomas Anderson into Tarantino to protect these kinds of formats and give you the to prioritize film aesthetics in that way. Like that is, I think, part of the reason why all the critics are like, "Oh my God, it's the greatest and this is the big contender."
But you know what? Like I have like literally 30 seconds, but I thought you'd be happy about this. I thought you'd be happy that a movie. Okay, all right. Because you see me, you're like, whoa, let's dial back all the praise for the movie.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, like you guys you shouldn't be vaulting this. Like, I mean, I think there's an aspect of self-aggrandizement that you'll see in even the opening shot of this movie where it's like Laszlo's arrival in America. There's a beautiful virtuoso shot where he sees the Statue of Liberty canted and it's all through a tracking shot. That's an announcement of the arrival of Laszlo in America. That's the announcement of the arrival of this film. And that's the announcement of arrival of Brady Corbet, who's trying to vault himself to the Masters. Yeah. And I think people are too in a rush to self-christen him.
Okay. All right, I buy what you're selling for now. I can't wait to go see The Brutalist. I'm going to go do that. And then we'll have this whole conversation again, but with me kind of yelling at you in the office, which will be wonderful. Radheyan Simonpillai, I appreciate your time, man. You're the best. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, dude.
Of course. Radheyan Simonpillai is a freelance film critic whose work shows up at The Globe, CTV, and right here on Commotion. He was in Toronto. My name is Elamin Abdul Mahmoud. This show is called Commotion. We'll be back tomorrow. See you then.